Human trafficking is a worldwide problem. Experts say it generates anywhere from $32 to $91 billion in profits. But how does Arizona fit into the picture? Well, according to the Department of Justice, Phoenix, Arizona is one of the top human trafficking spots in the United States. So the big question is, why? Well, there are many factors that make Phoenix so attractive to traffickers. To begin with, the Phoenix area attracts high-profile sporting events, such as Super Bowls, NBA All-Star Games, and college national championships. And while this means high profits for the city, it also means high profits for the human traffickers. Other factors that make Phoenix such a hotbed for traffickers are the transportation corridors. Now, these allow easy and anonymous movement throughout the state and across state lines. In addition, the warm climate and large resort communities also attract a high number of tourists to the Phoenix area year-round, which makes the Valley of the Sun even more susceptible to this horrific crime.
What did I tell you about sneaking boys?
So who's vulnerable to being trafficked? Experts say homeless, runaway, and foster children are more likely to be trafficked, and throwaway kids.
No, get your butt here.
Your children who are neglected and not wanted by their families are at a greater risk for being targeted and victimized by these predators.
I'm sick of you.
These kids often have low self-esteem and are seeking attention from anyone who will give it to them, including traffickers. And unlike drugs, a human body can be sold over and over again for profit. Statistics show that 1.68 million children run away from home each year. And 1 out of 3 teens living on the street will be lured into prostitution within 48 hours of leaving home. Human trafficking is not just limited to young girls. Young boys are also being lured and or forced into labor, commercial sex acts at an alarming rate. However, the public rarely hears about these cases because the male victims are too ashamed to come forward and report the crime. So as the number of people forced into human trafficking has increased, so has the number of male victims.
I knew I could do it. I knew it.
Many victims of human trafficking have come from abusive backgrounds before being involved with the industry. This abuse ranges anywhere from physical to sexual to emotional abuse.
You're a horrible person, and you too, I can't believe it. Nobody even likes you.
Other victims may have parents with a history of alcohol and drug use.
Just get out.
Furthermore, these victims are often subjected to domestic violence, neglect, or abandonment. And it's not just physical places where these predators lurk. The internet has given way to seducing both young boys and girls into the life. Traffickers prey on these kids and will oftentimes seek them out in places like malls and high schools, and surprisingly enough, middle schools. They also lure teens into the industry by promising them money, love, and comfort before forcing them into a life of drugs and prostitution. But young teens aren't the only group at risk for falling victim to trafficking. Immigrants without legal status in the country are also particularly at risk for forced labor. They are less likely to know their rights or what resources are even available to them to help escape from human trafficking situations. As law enforcement and others continue to document a growing industry in human trafficking, what can and should our community do to combat the problem? Let's take a look at 3 different ways to approach the situation. Approach 1 represents people who think we should focus on identifying and intervening with children in trouble and support a safe and healthy home for their children. This approach argues that parents, family members, and the community at large should be educated about human trafficking, including risk factors and warning signs, so they know what to do if they suspect that someone is being victimized or forced into sex trafficking. The second approach pertains to trained professionals like school personnel, paramedics, police, and fire departments. Oftentimes, medical professionals like doctors and paramedics are the first to come in contact with a victim after a violent or physical attack has occurred. If that is the case, then these people need to be trained to recognize the signs of human trafficking, gather information, and provide initial support. The third approach concentrates on laws and policies. Since 82% of sex trafficking victims in Maricopa have a drug or alcohol addiction, perhaps changing laws and or providing more programs for victims might decrease the likelihood of them returning to the life. So as you can see, there are many ideas about what needs to happen to address and prevent human trafficking. You will now participate in an important discussion about these ideas using the three approaches as a framework for thinking through the problem and possible solutions. As you deliberate, consider not just what could be done, but who needs to take action, what trade-offs and consequences may be considered in order to act upon those suggestions, and what is realistic and doable in your community. Thank you for taking part in this critical conversation.